fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to
Oh my god!
Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
After a couple of weeks break, Just Send It is back. Your favourite Tuesday night sim racing activity roars into life for season number 5, and you're watching it right here on the SimSpeed TV network. Good evening, everyone. Lockie Mansell here, talking you through all of the action for week 1 at season 5 of the Just Send It sim racing series presented by Logitech G, owned, and also coming on board as a sponsor for this season, Custom Track Art, who will be presenting a very cool trophy to our series champion. Joining me in commentary tonight, it's a very good evening to Cameron Dance. And Cameron, 5th season, same format that we all know and love, 40-minute races with a different car and track combo each week, but for something a bit different, we're actually running it as an official championship this season.
Yeah, so there's a little bit more on the line than just sending it on a few...
The car that we're going there in tonight, it's a car that we have raced on 4 previous occasions in Just Send It. The Mazda MX-5 International Cup car, and qualifying fastest tonight, taking pole position, adding another pole position to his tally. His 3rd pole position in Just Send It history, it's Job Stewart. Joining him on the front row of the grid, Jordan Caruso back then to Brenton, Hobson and Ryan Wood. Kobe Williams out of 5th spot ahead of Glenn Postlethwaite. Cooper Webster, Marcello Rivera, Andy Carey, and Dylan Golson completing your top 10.
You're going to go back to Christian Lindbaum and Jackson Johnson, followed by Caleb Hires, Josh Haynes, James Golding around the top 15 with Mitchell Bolton, Michael Rosenblatt, Emerson Harvey, Jack Widdowson, Blake Purdy rounding out the top 20.
Blake Purdy, one of the drivers who has won in the MX-5s before. Steve Jansen and Christina Nazarick next ahead of Lee Harrison and Mitchell McLeod. Jonathan Bykoff, Jack Lemon, Cooper Allen, Cameron Gall, Corey Herbertson and Harrison Dengate. Running a bit further down through the field, you can see Lockie Maneef back there as well, but just about set for a start, ready to get another season of Just Send It underway. Points, a trophy, a championship on the line. One driver looks like maybe jumping the start there a little bit. A slow start for our pole sitter, Job Stewart. He has been swamped off the line, and it's going to be our 2nd place driver on the grid who will move up to assume the race lead as they head down into turn number 1. And we've already got a car getting speared off, a couple of cars, in fact. Kobe Williams getting speared off to the left-hand side of the circuit as they head down towards turn 2.
Yeah, a little bit of a messy start for a few drivers, but at the front, a pretty clean start by the looks for nearly the entire field. And Jordan Caruso has really actually started to check out after a very, very good launch off the line as well. So he's got himself a nice, comfortable gap at the moment, but they're all going on behind, and there's a car off the road, and that's going to be a big hit.
Say coming, you go off there through that right-hander, and then when you're on the grass down there, you've got no control, no chance to stop the car, and it's absolute pandemonium down at turn number 5 with cars crashing into each other and spearing off everywhere. That was Cooper Webster, who was one of the cars that was involved in that. Let's check out the replay here. So through this long sweeping left-hander, keep in mind that they're on cold tyres. Once you get onto the grass down there, you are a passenger. And the problem is you are approaching a very, very tight right-hander, and you can see that Cooper Webster got absolutely drilled in the right-hand side door.
Yeah, certainly. Didn't really have much opportunity to try and avoid that when he was more or less just an innocent bystander, unfortunately, and has copped a fair amount of damage as well and suffered a number of cars after this first lap. So, not been the best start for a few drivers, including Cooper Webster, but at the front of the field, Ryan Wood's actually putting a lot of pressure on the back of Job Stewart here by the looks of it.
Really, really good start from Jordan Caruso. So he's been able to take advantage of that battle that's going on for positions 2, 3, and 4, just to extend a bit of breathing space. And look at how much of the road and the AstroTurf they're using on the exit of turn number 1 there, right out over the ripple strip, all 4 wheels. Is actually a bit of grip to be found out there by maximising the track width. And we do expect that everybody in the field is going to have to do 1 pit stop tonight, but for a lot of the drivers, that pit stop's going to be coming a little bit earlier than they would have been planning due to the damage that they would have sustained in that opening lap carnage that we saw down at turn 5.
Yes, certainly, and it's probably going to help them as well if we do get a safety car later on as well. It'll put them ahead of all the drivers who are going to be pitting it later on. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of strategy that's going to cause things to happen. That is Mitchell McLeod missing a wheel by the looks of it.
Let's have a look at the replay of what's happened here to Mitchell McLeod, one of our regular participants in the Just Send It series, and he was in there battling with Jack Lemon, and down again in the turn 4 and 5 area. There's another car. Oh, so there was another car that was just ahead that was having its own accident, and unfortunately, Mitchell McLeod's come around that right-hander and found his path completely blocked.
Yes, not too ideal for Mitch. And it wasn't actually a wheel; it was a bumper by the looks of it. A loose piece of body kit, regardless. But James Gordon currently having his hands full with Emerson Harvey just in front of him. Golding trying to look left and right, but Harvey's not making it easy for him. But he thinks better of him to just sit on behind for the time being.
One of the things that we always like to recognise in Just Send It is the drivers who make up the most positions, because it is Just Send It. We call it the Best Postman Award. And right now, that sits with Jordan Ford and Lachlan Maneve and also Mario Vartani. And all 3 of those drivers have already made up 22 positions, if you don't mind, in the space of 2.5 laps.
Yes, they've moved up the field actually quite easily, and that crash that took in a number of drivers as well on lap 1 at the hairpin would have helped them substantially as well. So they're doing all right for themselves, but it's really going to come down to what they can do for the rest of this race as well. Still plenty of racing to go, so anything can happen and probably will happen as well. But nevertheless, this front pack has really not actually moved much, and Jordan Caruso has actually started to come under a little bit of pressure as well from Job Stewart as lap traffic is starting to become a factor here.
Yeah, Matthew Hansford Taylor there in the number 97 car, just having to sidestep the race leaders. And if anything, I think that probably checked up our race leader, Jordan Caruso, a bit. And it's now only 0.4 of a second, or about half a second, separating the top 3 cars on the racetrack. So we're right on board with Ryan Wood. Lots of undulations and tricky camber changes in this racetrack as Ryan Wood looks to the outside of Job Stewart heading into the second to last corner. That'll be a pretty big move if he can pull it off, but he'll be on the wrong side of the road. Job Stewart defends to the inside, manages to hold on to the race lead, and Jordan Caruso having to take a defensive line as they run down the main straight. This time it's Stewart who looks to the outside, looking to go the long way around through turn number 1. Not able to do so, and once again you can see just how much of the road those drivers are using. And I think for Jordan Caruso it was probably a bit too much road. Yes, he lost the momentum on the exit, and it's Job Stewart who goes through in the Pursuit Sim Racing Mazda MX-5 to take over the lead of the race.
Yeah, great heads-up driving there by Job Stewart to find a way on by Caruso. Caruso just taking a little bit too much of the AstroTurf and actually getting onto the grass ever so slightly and losing a bit of grip. So fortunately, he's going to drop 1 position. But Ryan Wood just casually sitting in behind these 2, currently just being nice and patient, using plenty of skill that he's got in karts, but nevertheless is doing a pretty mighty job at the moment as Caruso's actually got a run here down the back straight, and he's going to possibly look to pull out. He's actually bump drafting with Job Stewart as well, so moving all over the road, bump drafting, but he's going to stay in behind for the time being as the two try to work together to pull away from Wood here.
And we can see that while these three are battling, Marcello Rivera there in position 4 is just maintaining and watching breath. He's not too far away. He'll be able to capitalise if any of these three come together as Wood goes to the outside of Jordan Caruso. The two MX-5s side by side into the second and last corner they will come, and it will be Caruso on the inside, Wood on the outside, a braking duel into the right-hander. You can see how dramatically the track dips down there as they head through that turn, and it's Caruso who just about manages to hold on to it. Stewart starting to extend a bit of breathing space over these two cars at this point, and one of the things with these Mazda MX-5s, Cameron, is because they only produce quite modest amounts of horsepower, it really is all about minimising the mistakes and maximising the momentum.
Yes, certainly. It's all about that momentum at the end of the day and focusing on making sure you're carrying a nice amount of speed into the corner. Not too much and not too little to make sure you can get a nice exit and try and get by the driver ahead. So it's really putting a test to some of these drivers' ability and how they're able to manage the momentum and keep the corner speed up to not lose out too much to the driver ahead or behind.
Good battle as well. Corey Herbertson, who started a bit further down the order. Lachlan Maneef, another driver who came from outside the top 30 on the grid. Mario Vartanian, who's made up a lot of spots as well. They're all battling, and Corey Herbertson just copping a bit of a bump from Lachie Maneef there as he headed down through that right-hander. And you can see there Caleb Hyde's catching up to these cars as well. Caleb Hyde's is actually the highest placed of the cars in the race that has taken a pit stop at this stage. In Just Send It, we typically see at least one pit stop, but we are actually hearing that for Caleb Hyde's, the visit to pit lane was a drive-through penalty for a false start. So the actual highest placed car to have done an actual pit stop, we believe, is Cooper Webster, who sustained some damage on the opening lap. So just to come back to the point that I was making, for those of you who are not familiar with Just Send It, typically there will be one pit stop that will be taken by every car in the field. And safety cars in Just Send It are determined randomly. We can have anywhere between no safety cars and 2 safety cars, as determined by the race director. So that's the other thing that might throw a bit of a spanner into the works for some of these drivers.
Yeah, it certainly will, especially those who haven't put in and those who have earlier on, trying to more or less counter what the safety car is going to do and give them a bit of track position later on. As you're seeing the pit lane start to light up, and interestingly, Caleb Hyde's actually taking tyres as well, which is quite fascinating considering they actually take quite a while, and you'd only think they'd want fuel, but clearly deciding 4 tyres is the way to go. So we'll see how that goes for him. But battle for the lead is well and truly on, and they're going to be nearly 3 wide as Ryan Woods, looking to the right-hand side, puts 2 wheels in the dip, but just can't find a way on by, pushing Jordan Caruso to the inside and the lead, and Caruso is going to end up taking it. Woods going to get not quite a position out of that.
Seeing there that Ryan Wood actually just gave himself a little bit of extra space there by braking a little bit earlier to make sure he could carry more speed on the exit of the corner, and it almost worked, but he just didn't quite have the track space to be able to get away with it. This has been a ripper battle between these 3 cars, and Marcello Rivera is still maintaining and watching breath there in position 4, not too far away at this stage. So Just Send It, once again, season 5 will consist of 12 weeks, as have all of the previous seasons, as we see that Job Stewart's decided that he's had enough of that battle for now. He's going to get his pit stop out of the way. Unlike previous seasons, though, we are actually keeping an official championship point score. Avid watchers of Just Send It will have noted that I have kept an unofficial points tally from the seasons that we've had so far, but for this season we are actually keeping an official point score, which we'll see points awarded to the top 20 drivers each week in Just Send It. And at the end of the 12 weeks, we'll be taking each driver's 8 best results to count towards the championship. So it means that each driver effectively gets to drop their worst 4 rounds, which I think Cameron is a fair way of doing it, given that it is a weekly competition. Of course, sometimes people might have commitments on Tuesday nights that might prevent them from attending a couple of events. So that's the reason that we do allow drivers to drop their 4 worst rounds.
Yeah, similar to what iRacing use for their official series championships anyway, where you get 8 weeks counted and then obviously those 4 drop weeks that you get to choose from. So it's going to be interesting to see how the championship plays out and what those drop rounds are going to have what sort of impact they're going to have on the championship as well for some of these drivers, whether they end up dropping points, whether they just end up dropping the week altogether. It's really going to make it quite fascinating and see who comes out on top this season, with it being a little bit more different than what we have in previous seasons.
They're doing all of the number crunching in the background and keeping everybody up to date. So here is Job Stewart. So he's now the highest placed of the drivers who has done a pit stop. He has emerged in position 8, having taken that pit stop, just ahead of Jackson Johnston and Andy Carey, who've also taken pit stops, and Jordan Caruso and Marcello Rivera now in the pits as well. So that will leave Ryan Wood as the race leader ahead of Emerson Harvey.
This is going to be interesting to see whether Ryan Wood's going to stay out for a bit or whether he's going to react to what Caruso does. And bearing in mind whether the safety car comes out or not, is that's a big gaggle of cars in the back, and then nearly 3 wide as well. It's all going on for the minor places down the field.
How good's the car control been from some of these drivers in the mid-pack? We've seen people dropping all 4 wheels off the racetrack, and we've seen a bit of drift action from drivers keeping the boot into it, applying the opposite lock, and keeping the car pointing in roughly the direction that they want it to go, as Glenn Postlethwaite goes for a big send down on the inside of that was Jackson Griffith that he just made the move on. Here's Job Stewart, and the key thing here is that he has resumed in position 6. So Job Stewart has actually lost a bit of time there to Jordan Caruso. Jordan Caruso now about 6 seconds ahead of Job Stewart. So that sequence of pit stops has not quite worked out for Job Stewart, you would have to say.
Yeah, it's quite a difference in gap between, considering they were nose to tail before the pit stop sequences all happened. So I wonder if maybe a possible penalty, or maybe even taking tyres in the pit stop for Job Stewart to have lost that much time. But nevertheless, we'll have to wait and see what happens as this race progresses on. But Ryan Wood deciding to come into the lane this time by. So going to be interesting to see where he comes out in relation to all of it, as Emerson Harvey also joins him on the lane.
You're right, this is a critical pit stop here for Ryan Wood, because where he comes out relative to Jordan Caruso and Job Stewart is basically going to give us our effective race leading position. So here comes Jordan Caruso up the start finish straight now. Where is Ryan Wood? Can he get out ahead? There he is, just exiting the pits now. I think that Jordan Caruso is going to have him covered. Indeed he does. So Jordan Caruso sweeps around through turn number 1, and he will resume in the effective lead of the race. And there is Job Stewart behind Ryan Wood. So Job Stewart slots back into what will be effectively 3rd position in the motor race with that round of pit stops complete. I'm just having a look at the pit stop times there, Cameron. So the shortest stationary time in pit lane was Jordan Caruso, 17.3 seconds. The stationary time for his pit stop compared to 18.1 seconds for Ryan Wood and 20.9 seconds for Job Stewart. So Stewart's stop a little bit less efficient, and that was why he lost a bit of time to the 2 drivers that he was battling against.
Yeah, and interesting to note as well, Ryan Wood actually took left-hand side tyres in that pit stop as well, whereas Caruso and Stewart didn't. So going to be fascinating to see how this works out for Wood, and whether he's going to be able to utilise those newer tyres to his advantage, whether the differential's not quite going to be big enough for him to manage to close that gap down and get by Caruso with great ease. But we'll wait and see what happens and whether he's got enough pace in them.
Good battle. Mitchell McLeod and Glenn Postlethwaite, a couple of the veterans of the Just Send It series, currently occupying positions 12 and 13. Everybody has done their pit stops at this stage except for Jordan Ford, our race leader. He's yet to take his stop. Whoa, very wide moment there. Mitchell McLeod right out sideways. That's going to make him vulnerable to Glenn Postlethwaite, who is almost but not quite able to get past. How on earth did Mitchell McLeod manage to get back onto the track without losing that position? Because he was way off the racetrack.
Yeah, he's very lucky to hold on to the position there and not end up losing it as there's contact between Postlethwaite and McLeod. And McLeod's off and into the gravel and grass, and he's going to lose 3-4 positions out of this, maybe even 5. He's unlucky enough. He's going to drop him behind Emerson Harvey. So fortunately, McLeod's going to lose a handful of positions out of that, and Postlethwaite is going to carry on and take the position.
Here's Cooper Webster on a recovery mission after getting caught up in that brouhaha that we saw on the opening lap. He's attacking the back of Kobe Williams down into turn 2 at the moment and gives the bump. Williams has been sent by Cooper Webster. Cooper Webster not taking any prisoners at the moment. He was down the inside. Kobe Williams not quite sure. I don't think that Webster was there, and it's on for the lead here as well. Ryan Wood has got ahead of Jordan Caruso, so he came out a couple of seconds behind, but he's been able to make up that time, Ryan Wood, and he has now moved ahead of Jordan Caruso to take the lead of the motor race.
Well, Caruso did get held up at the hairpin quite badly by lap traffic as well, so it allowed Ryan Wood to really take advantage and set the exit up nicely to get the run on him down the back straight and into the next corner. So good heads-up driving there by Ryan Wood to take advantage of possible error that Jordan Caruso and traffic that he had to deal with. So it's definitely on for the lead here, and now Caruso is going to just have to try and do what he can. He did try and put the pressure on Ryan Wood.
I'd love to tell you who's got the fastest lap of the race, but I think that so many drivers have exceeded the track limits that hardly anyone's actually recorded a valid lap time at this stage. Last time around, it was 1 minute 44.1 for Ryan Wood compared to a 45.9 for Jordan Caruso. So Caruso lost significant time with that lap's traffic, and it's really playing to the advantage of Ryan Wood. We look a bit further back to 4th place, James Golding battling it out with 5th place, Andy Carey. They're inside the top 5, but they are a fair way behind the race leaders. Almost 15 seconds, in fact, behind our leading trio of Mazda MX-5s. James Golding sporting the Tinder livery once again. Wonder how much they pay him in sponsorship to display those colours on his MX-5. Or I wonder if he just gets a free subscription to their service.
It would be definitely a good question, and he's ripping the bright pinkish red, I guess you could say, a peach colour, I guess you would call it, with those colours, and certainly not going to miss that car on track at all. We've seen it on dirt as well with Joel Berkeley running a similar livery, and you definitely don't miss the Tinder car on track. So yeah, it's very much a bright coloured car, and we've got the safety car coming out.
There we go. So pretty much bang on halfway, the safety car makes its appearance just to bunch up the field. So as mentioned before, we do have a random number of safety cars. So we know that we're going to have obviously now at least one in this race. So this is obviously going to bunch up the field. Shouldn't really have too much impact as far as strategy is concerned because everybody has done their pit stops. But what it does, Cameron, is that there are some quite fast cars that might have sustained damage a bit earlier on. It gets them back into the game. So I'm thinking about drivers like Cooper Webster, who are a little bit further down the order.
Yes, a few drivers down the order who are certainly going to be able to take advantage of this safety car period. You've got the likes of Kobe Williams, Caleb Hydes, Mario Vartanian, a few others as well, the likes of Steve Yancey, MARCELLO, RIVERA, Jonathan Bykoff, Cooper Webster, just a number of drivers who are really going to be able to relish this safety car period and going to be able to use it to their advantage to make their way on through the field that much quicker than they were.
One driver who won't be charging through the field is Blake Purdy. Unfortunately, he was a retirement earlier on in the race. His night is done. He was one of the drivers involved in the lap 1 incident, and unfortunately too much damage for him to be able to continue, but for a lot of the other drivers, it gets them right back into the game. So safety car will be on the circuit for a couple of laps. Ryan Wood, your race leader, ahead of Jordan Caruso, Job Stewart, James Golding, Andy Carey, Brenton Hobson, Cameron Gall, Jack Witters, Dylan Golson, and Christian Lindbob completing your top 10 at this stage. Big thanks to our sponsors for Season 5 of the Just Send It iRacing series, Logitech G, the owned game streaming platform, and Custom Track Art, who are going to be designing a beautiful custom trophy to be presented to the champion for Season 5 of Just Send It. So whoever goes on to win this championship, Cameron, they'll actually have a trophy that they'll be able to display in their living room. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's not every day you get to have a track to hang up on your wall, whether it be Bathurst, whether it be at Nürburgring, or whatever your favourite track is. It's yeah, cool bit of kit to have to hang on your wall and show your mates and be like, I won this at one point.
Those of you interested in competing in the Just Send It series, make sure you jump on the Just Send It Facebook page. The Monday before each Just Send It event, the organisers announce the car and the track combination. So basically everybody gets 24 hours to do some practice and get themselves up to speed. What we have seen is that these events are typically quite popular, and more often than not, we do have to run multiple splits because of the number of drivers that turn out for qualifying. And at the moment, because the supercars circus has been quite busy, we haven't had as many of the full-time supercar drivers running in Just Send It, but certainly once the Supercars Championship finishes, I fully expect the likes of Shane Van Gisbergen and Scott McLaughlin, Anton De Pasquale to be returning to participate in some Just Send It races, and maybe we might even get some more appearances from our newly crowned Australian Formula 3 champion, FIA Formula 3 champion Oscar Piastri, who wrapped up that title on the weekend because he was also an avid competitor in Just Send It and is, in fact, a two-time Just Send It race winner.
Yeah, so it'll be good to have all those sort of celebrity drivers, I guess you could call them, coming back and giving it a lob to see what they can do against the rest of the sim racers out there that are currently out there today running and doing it quite well for themselves. So yeah, going to be interesting to see what happens later in the year when the motorsport season comes to a close and they all get their Christmas break.
I mean, really, what other sport gives ordinary, everyday people an opportunity to sit in their bedroom or sit in their study or their lounge room and compete head-to-head against legends of the sport? There is nowhere else where that happens.
Certainly right, and it's one of those cool things about sim racing and esports in general is you get the chance to race and compete against those idols, I guess you could say, for the sport that you like on a casual basis. You're not having to work and be in part of the circus that is that real side of it and spend all that money. You've just got to be at home, sit on your couch, and go, hey, I race Shane Van Gisbergen or I race McLaughlin or whoever it may be.
I noticed that you were very quick to name the Kiwi drivers there, Cameron. Oh, was that a bit of a wheel problem there? It looks like temporarily for our third place driver, Job Stewart. It looks there like the front left-hand wheel parted company with his Mazda MX-5. It all looks okay now. A couple of drivers as well that I know has just taking the opportunity to dive into the pits for an extra pit stop, possibly for some damage repairs and some fresh tyres. We are expecting that we will get a restart this time around. The lights are out on the iRacing Porsche safety car. So we'll have just over 14 minutes remaining in what should be a pretty exciting sprint to the checkered flag in week 1, season 5 of Just Send It. Just one corner left to go for the safety car before we get a resumption of play.
Yeah, very, very heated restart as well, with everybody being bunched up and all those quick drivers now having a very good opportunity to be able to make their way through the field if they are down the order a little bit, and also get some moves done that they might not have been able to do earlier on.
So Ryan Wood has never won a race in Just Send It. Neither has Jordan Caruso. Job Stewart, on the other hand, he is a 4-time race winner in the Just Send It series. So he's the most experienced in terms of race wins in the drivers in the top 3. Back underway here in the Just Send It series, way off the road goes Jordan Caruso. He's going to drop 3-4 spots with that wide moment at turn 1. James Golding moves up into 3rd position. Jordan Caruso has fallen all the way back to 6th position as a result of that slip-up. He's in behind Brenton Hobson. So on cold tyres at the race start, a mistake there for Jordan Caruso. Drops a bunch of spots. Ryan Wood has been able to extend a 6/10 of a second advantage over the rest of the field, and it's Golding who's now putting the pressure on Stewart for position 2.
Yeah, there was actually a little bit of contact between Stewart and Caruso turn 1, so that's why he went off the road. But Caruso forcing his way back up the order on by Andy Carey, trying to get up the inside and make his way on by to get, well, not lose the train that is the top 3 at the moment. Golding with a decent restart as well to move up into P3 at the moment. But Ryan Wood has built himself a nice little gap at this point, actually, from Job Stewart. Remembering that he did actually take left side tyres as well in the pit stop, so you have that advantage of having slightly newer tyres than majority of the cars around him as well.
See how aggressive Jordan Caruso was, having lost those few positions. He was very keen to make them up again as quickly as he could, because he knows that he can't afford to lose too much time to the race leaders. Less than 12 minutes remaining now in this one. How about Christian Lindbaum? He's been a big charger up the order, up to 8th position for Christian Lindbaum. Oh, and we've got chaos here in the final corner. A couple of cars off the racetrack. They'll need to be careful how they rejoin to ensure that they don't take out other innocent bystanders.
Yeah, there was certainly a bit of argy-bargy going on at that final corner here. Jackson Johnson getting hit from behind, and from there, it all just pretty much turned into an absolute melee with Goulston and various other drivers getting collected as a result. So it's definitely not lighthearted going on back here, and it's certainly not quiet as well, with everybody really getting into it and having their elbows out.
So James Golding in 3rd position, but he's under pressure from a fired-up Jordan Caruso, who gets a better exit from the hairpin and will relieve James Golding of the final podium position. So Jordan Caruso back up inside the top 3. Golding now has his mirrors full of the green and blue MX-5 of Andy Carey. Can he turn defence into attack James Golding? No. No, I think Jordan Caruso just has a little bit too much speed at the moment, because he's already starting to establish some breathing space over Golding. There was a car parked in the gravel trap back there as well. There it is, Matthew Hansford-Taylor. A lot of front-end damage to that car, and that'll be his night done.
Yeah, it's looking like it's a little bit of a sad MX-5 at the moment with that front-end heavy damage that it's got, which looks like it's taken quite a hit to the barrier as well. So I'd say that is probably going to be his night over for sure. But nevertheless, Brenton Hobson doing a pretty good job, as well as Cameron Gould as well. And Gould up from 28th on the grid, so he's made his way up over 20 places up the field. So he's done reasonably well for himself. But you can see Golding is having to let the position go on Andrew Carey, and there is more carnage at the final corner as well.
Michael Rosenblatt was involved in that one, and I think Josh Haynes was as well. Here's a replay of what happened in that incident. So Michael Rosenblatt, so there was another car that had spun coming out of the last corner, and Rosenblatt had nowhere to go. Steve Jansen with a lot of damage to the front end of his car, and I think a lot of those cars will probably be heading back to the pits for repairs. We're right on board with Brenton Hobson. He's the next one who's going to attack the back of James Golding. So Golding, who was temporarily up in a podium position, hasn't quite had the pace there were some of the other cars since the safety car restart, and he's a bit vulnerable at the moment. Brenton Hobson in his traditional 6th position, but would like to be one spot higher up than that. He goes to the outside of James Golding. They bang doors, the two Mazda MX-5s, and Golding just manages to stay ahead.
I think that was probably going to be a little bit ambitious to try go around the outside of Golding there for Hobson, but managed to both come out the other side regardless. And Lindbaum making it up the inside of goal as well. So another position for Lindbaum to move in to P at number 7 and doing an all right job off this restart as well. But Golding under pressure from Hobson now, and Hobson trying to find a way by around the outside, but not quite going to be able to do it.
The other interesting thing, so I pointed out Cooper Webster and suggested that he might be one to watch. Well, he has been, but not for the right reasons. He's plummeted down to 32nd position, and there he is back in the pits. So not a good night for Cooper Webster, the most successful driver in the history of the Just Send It series in terms of race victories. Here's another replay of an incident a bit further back. This has got trouble written all over it. Cars running 3 and even 4 wide. Oh. And I think that this will probably go on for a couple more corners as well, coming out of the final corner. What happens down at turn number 1? They all managed to get through there. Yes, they have, somehow, just.
Yeah, they're
back to live shots.
Just managed to make it through and still going at it nose to tail as well. So they're not leaving anything on the table, are these drivers. But at the front of the field, the race lead has changed as Job Stewart has managed to find a way by on Ryan Wood finally. But Wood is not giving this one up easily. He's going to continue to put the pressure on the back of the Pursuit Sim Racing driver, but not going to be able to get it move this time around, as seen Hobson also make his way by James Golding, and Lindbaum's actually made his way on by Golding as well. So Golding's dropped down the order a little bit here.
Job Stewart, he's been so fast and so successful, hasn't he, in so many different sim racing categories. Finally set to make his real life debut in a Toyota 86 at Taylor Bend in the Aussie Tin Tops category this weekend. So very much looking forward to seeing how he goes in that one, the Erebus Academy driver. But right now, he's the leader in Just Send It, and he's also got a different driver hunting him down because Jordan Caruso has made the move on Ryan Wood for position 2. Caruso back up to 2nd, and he's got the race leader, Job Stewart, in sight. We've got 6 minutes to go, and we're set for a blockbuster finish with these 3 drivers all battling it out all the way through to the checkered flag.
Yes, hey, these boys aren't going to leave anything on the table, and they're going to do everything they can to try and win the race as Caruso looks up the inside of the pursuit car of Job Stewart, not going to be able to get close enough to get the move done, and he's actually compromised his exit as well. So Wood's going to be able to get a much better run here and is going to be in a nice position heading down the back straight. You can see that line is Stern using the draft as much as they possibly can, and Wood's closing ever so slightly on Caruso, but not quite going to be able to do it, and actually backs out of it. So they're all kind of working together here and possibly waiting for the last lap.
Yeah, well, the slipstream's quite powerful with these MX-5s, so it's almost a case of not wanting to be leading the race until you get to the last lap. A bit of bump drafting now happening as Jordan Caruso tickles the rear bumper of Job Stewart's car. It's been a great recovery drive from Jordan Caruso to make up all the time and the positions he lost with that off-track moment at turn 1, but he makes a bit of a mistake. This is going to allow Ryan Wood to recapture 2nd position. So Wood back up to 2nd. Caruso gets relegated back to 3rd. They've still got the race leader, Job Stewart, well and truly in sight, but just a couple of mistakes there. A couple of wide moments, a bit of lost momentum for Jordan Caruso, and you can see how quickly it costs you time and positions.
Yes, especially in these cars where momentum is everything. So really making a mistake is costing Caruso a lot here. Is got Postlethwaite and also McLeod battling just further behind, but it's still on for the lead as well, as Wood is trying everything he can to find a way on by Job Stewart. Just can't quite seem to get it done at the moment. He's going to stick with him as much as he can. He's got a lot of pressure from Caruso behind, so he is the meat in the sandwich, as they say, and he's really going to be trying to do everything he can here.
An absolute ripper race this has been between the top three, swapping positions here, there, and everywhere, carving each other up. It's been an absolutely sensational battle, and the contest is still on in earnest. Pretty much everywhere you look in the field at the moment, there will be cars dicing fiercely for position as Ryan Wood wants the lead of the race back. He lost it a couple of laps ago, but he goes back to P1. Ryan Wood up the inside of Job Stewart and puts the number 14 car back to the front.
So certainly plenty of racing still to go. Only going to be a few laps left, so really is going to be a question of who's going to win this one at the front of the field. But Mitchell McLeod is going to try and hold it around the outside at the next corner here on Glen Postlethwaite, but not quite going to be able to do it. He's going to try the over and under, though, on Postlethwaite as they come through the back end of the second. He's going to have the inside for the final corner, so should be able to get the job done reasonably easy, and it looks like he has. Or maybe not.
And a good battle too, hasn't it? That's been going on for a large proportion of this race. And both these cars started 25th and 28th at the restart. So they've both fought really, really hard to get back up into the top 10. And now they're dicing over positions 9 and 10 in the race, with Postlethwaite just ahead of McLeod for the time being. Looking back to the battle for the race lead with 2.5 minutes to go. Job Stewart as close as he can be to the rear of Ryan Wood, down into turn number 5, and looks to the inside. No space. Morse code on the rear bumper of Ryan Wood just to try and unsettle him. The other driver that you can't count out of this as well, Cameron, Andy Carey in 4th position. A couple of laps ago, he was 3.5 seconds off the lead. He's now only 1.5 seconds off the lead. And while these top three are battling, he is slowly but surely railing them in.
Yeah, he certainly is, and Stewart's going to go back to the lead of the race past Ryan Wood, but Wood's going to do the over and under on the exit of the corner. He's going to have the inside for the next set of corners, but he's going to have to hang it tough around the outside here, and he's going to manage to do that and get the position. And Caruso going to follow him on through as well, so Stewart's going to drop back to 3rd here as Caruso is going to have the inside for the final corner. Is Stewart going to be able to hold on to the outside? We'll have to wait and see, but Caruso's going to stick his nose in up the inside, and Stewart's nearly going to go around the outside of both of them.
Andy Carey's right there now too. It's genuinely a four-way contest. Andy Carey now just half a second off the lead. He gained an entire second in the space of half a lap on those 3 cars. And the next group of cars, Hobson and Lindbaum, they're only a couple of seconds away now as well. So we could have a 6-car fight here with what will be 1 lap remaining in this MX5 race. What a finish. What a ripper.
It's certainly been a night to watch this Just Send It series, and there's nothing on the table, left on the table at this point. They're all fighting at the absolute maximum they can, and you've got Ryan Wood in the lead of this race. Job Stewart tucked literally all over the back, and Caruso's going to look to the inside. Stewart goes defensive. All of them go defensive, apart from Andy Carey is going to sit in behind. Stewart runs wide. Caruso's going to send it up the inside to take second, and now Wood's going to have just enough of a gap here, but Caruso going to have a drag race to Stewart down the back straight. Carey right now in this. It's going to be side by side as they head down to the end of the back straight. Who's going to lift first? Neither of them are going to do it, but Caruso decides to think better of it, and Job Stewart's got a decent run, but so is Caruso. He's going to look to try and make a move on Job Stewart here. He's not quite going to be able to have a gap to get on by as Stewart is putting on a defensive drive here, and he's going to possibly have to settle for third, sorry.
1 corner left to go, so it's all coming down to this very last corner of the race. It'll be the final overtaking opportunity. You'll need to make a really big send if you want to win it from here. Caruso goes for it, up the inside of Job Stewart. Carey might grab both of them in 1 corner, and Brenton Hobson's going to pounce as well. Side by side on the run to the finish. Ryan Wood's going to win the thing, but who prevails in the battle for 2nd place? Hold your breath, wait for them to come across the line, and it's Carey who gets home in 2nd ahead of Hobson. They've come from the clouds to get themselves on the podium, and they relegate Caruso and Stewart to positions 4 and 5. Ryan Wood did enough there on the final lap to establish just enough breathing space to guarantee himself the victory. But how was the finish there? It was Caruso up the inside of Stewart. Both of those cars ran wide and allowed both Andy Carey and Brenton Hobson to nip past both of them and get themselves onto the podium in the very last corner of the race. What a ripper. What an epic way to kick off another season of Just Send It here at Oulton Park tonight.
Yeah, certainly. And they say this track is underrated. Well, prime evidence, this track is absolutely amazing for racing, no matter what cars you throw at it. So awesome night of racing at the front of the field. And Mitch going for it up the inside on Postlethwaite, and Postlethwaite going to try and come back at him on the grass even with 4 wheels in the dirt, but not quite going to have the advantage, and it's going to just be in Mitchell McLeod's favour as he gets shuffled out by Postlethwaite with a bump and run.
So this was all happening while we were watching the battle for the lead. We didn't really get to watch it because we were so transfixed by what was happening in the lead contest, but Mitchell McLeod and Glenn Postlethwaite went side by side there for pretty much an entire lap, and in the end it's Mitchell McLeod who prevails there, just getting ahead of Glenn Postlethwaite at the finish. And this is how it happened. It was down the inside. They made contact in the final corner with Postlethwaite copping a bit of a serve and getting fired off the racetrack. I think that's fair bump play on. They'd certainly been exchanging plenty of paint in the lead up to that final quarter incident. And this is that... so this is Christian Lindbom. We're hearing that he's run out of fuel on the last lap, so he done a really good job to work his way up into the top 10, but Christian Lindbom's car has cried enough. It's coughed, it's spluttered, and it's ground to a halt on the very final lap of the race, and that's why he is losing positions hand over fist.
Yeah, unfortunately, didn't quite take enough of that go-go juice and ended up paying the price, unfortunately, halfway around. So going to drop down the order and end up coming home in 25th. So not quite as bad as it could have been, but certainly not the result he would have hoped for.
I'm out of breath after that one. It's we've had a couple of weeks off to get ourselves ready for another Just Send It season, and probably for good reason, because if tonight's any indication, it's going to be a high activity, high energy season over the next 12 weeks. Here's confirmation of your results. Ryan Wood, your winner. Andy Carey grabbing second position in the very last corner of the race ahead of Brenton Hobson. Jordan Caruso and Job Stewart in the battle for the lead for so much of the race, but fall off the podium in the very last corner. James Golding in 6th position ahead of Cameron Gall, Mitchell McLeod and Glenn Postlethwaite 8th and 9th, and Kobe Williams rounding out the top 10.
And go over the page to Caleb Hydes and Jordan Ford, followed by Mario Vartane, Josh Haynes, and Jaden Russell rounding out the top 15. Harvey Griffith, Jansen, Dingay, and Rosenblatt rounding out the top 20.
Back then to Dylan Golson in 21st, Lockie Maneef 22nd, back to Jonathan Bykoff, Mitchell Bolton, and then, of course, Christian Lindbom not finishing due to that fuel miscalculation. Christina Nazarick back there, Jack Widdus, and we start getting back to the drivers who had problems or retired altogether. Cooper Allen, Jack Lemon, and Marcello Rivera among those drivers.
Yeah, so a few DNFs, but certainly what a night of racing, and you couldn't ask for a better way to start the season, that's for sure.
No, we've missed Just Send It over the last couple of weeks, but it's great to have it back. Thank you again to the businesses that are on board sponsoring Just Send It in this 5th season. Logitech G, Custom Track Art, are going to be producing the official Champions Trophy for the season as well. And also owned a game streaming platform coming on board to support this season of Just Send It as well. We'll be back same time, same channel next Tuesday evening for another night of big sends on behalf of Cameron Dance and the entire crew here at SimSpeed TV. I'm Lockie Mansell. Bye for now.
fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got everything outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top now.
Oh my God! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled.
Second very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no! That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
No!